Welcome to Everything Casual, bringing you original football casual videos from the golden era of the 80s and 90s, right up to current day. Football away day stories and historic clashes between football firms. Subscribe so you don't miss out. We upload videos every week.
By the time England played Germany in Munich, there was mutual respect for each other's mob, as the Germans were one of the few firms to arrive in England and have a go, as Fat Pat recalls. This is Fat Pat's version of events. I always liked a good international, as the whole day was a buzz, meeting up with lads from all over. But in September 91, the game against Germany had a bit of extra spice to it, as we had it on good authority that their mob was going to show in London for the first time ever. There has long been a history between our country and the Germans. Our parents and grandparents fought for their lives to defend Britain against the Germans in 2 world wars. The last thing we wanted was German hooligans in our capital city taking the piss. It could not happen and would not happen. They had to be repelled. It was our duty as Brits, and one that I felt duty bound to carry out. It was political and it was very important. In the morning, we went down to Victoria, walked through the concourse at the station, and I noticed about 300 lads there. My mate turned around to me and asked who Crystal Palace were playing, but I knew right from the off that these geezers were not Londoners, as they were all big bastards. And as soon as we walked through, they all clocked us, and I thought, they're here, they're taking the piss, what are we going to do? People were still working, and we couldn't get everyone to come out together, but already it was coming on top, as the old bills started turning up, nicking loads of them, as they had bum bags on, and when they were searching them, they were finding flares and gas. Later, when it went to court, I read that all the Germans said it's legal to carry it in Germany, and they didn't know they were breaking the law, so the judge apologised to them and released them. Fair play to them. Even though they were Germans, we're all hooligans. And I wouldn't like to see anybody get nicked, and would have loved to have seen the old Bill's face when that happened. Anyway, my pal went into the station, and about 10 Germans were around him, and the conversation went something like this. You English? Yeah. Where are your hooligan? Well, I'm not being funny, mate, but no one really expected you, but we're trying to round people up. That's your problem. We're here. He went on to say that by 3 o'clock they were going up to Piccadilly Circus and meeting up there, so get our boys together. By this time, my mate was frothing from the mouth, and he went away pulling his hair out when the cheeky bastard finished off by saying, "We have done our bit, and as you say in English, we're taking the piss now." We were up for doing attacks by then, 3 or 4 of us, just to do something, but brains took over and we got a meet together in the Hog and the Pound in Bond Street. Everyone was running around, getting everyone together, and we had about 60 to 70 faces when a few decided to go and have a nose to see if what we were saying was true. I told this little firm to wait, and that I knew that what I had seen was not a mirage. But they took no notice and off they went. Soon after, I got a phone call saying that at the top of Carnaby Street, there was 150 German in the Blue Post, and there was no old Bill with them, which was a gift. I warned the lad to make sure nobody did anything to pot it up, and to give us time to get there and give it to them proper. We walked down the back streets, and as we were getting parallel to Regent Street, you could hear all the old Bill in the distance, and I saw a Villa geezer running up the road towards us with his shirt all ripped down the side. I asked him what had happened, and he said that while they were waiting for us, a few of them had got a bit pissed and said, "Oh, they're only Germans," and then gone down and attacked them on Carnaby Street. But the whole pub's piled out with gas flares and everything, and all you could hear was Let's hear from a West Ham top face. This is the ICF version of events. What an absolute blinding, unbelievable night. We'd booked into the Holiday Inn, and on the day of the game I went down for some breakfast, and as 20 of our lot were moaning about the lack of Wolves sausage, Danish bacon and HP sauce, the phone went, and it was the rest of the West Ham firm who had just arrived in Munich, telling us to get ourselves over to the centre as England were mobbing up and things were getting lively. After the reply of "bollocks, you come down to us, we're West Ham and we're going on our own," was received loud and clear. We got back to the continental meets and whatever, and soon were greeted by the sight of 30 odd lads that were proper old school, giving us a tasty mob of 50. In the hotel bar, we had a look round and noticed about 30 other geezers who were lumps, fit-looking geezers that you could tell had done a bit. They all had a bit of the boxing appearance about them, and you could tell straight away that they were Londoners. It was now a case of finding out who they were, and an elimination process took place, and we agreed that they were not Yids, as they looked our age, and Tottenham's firm were all a lot younger. We knew they were not Chelsea, as they wouldn't even be sitting near us in this bar, as it was claimed by us and regarded as ours, which left the possibility of them being Millwall, which we thought was highly unlikely, or a mixture of lumps from the smaller clubs who had joined up in case they needed to be firm-handed. We had a good afternoon looking across at these lumps with the odd smile and pleasantry exchanged when 50 to 60 northerners came in the bar, all good geezers, who came over and asked if they could tag along with us, as they heard we were walking to the ground, as we always do, and they had been fucked off by the other mob who had just left. It was turning into a great day. There we all were in a decent hotel, leather seats, waitress service, having a ball. All we needed now was a bit of a rumble, a good win for the lads, and it would be the complete trip. Our lot had got into wearing the first Longshanks coats that had just been brought out, and I put the cap on and zipped up my coat and said, "Come on, we're going." I got outside and turned right and looked behind me, and it was an impressive sight, as 130 geezers, a proper firm, all marched behind me, including a good few of the lumps who were in the bar earlier. There were all sorts of rumours that the Germans are going to be here or there or everywhere, and this and that is going to happen, but I told our lot not to listen to all that bollocks, and that if we all stuck together as one firm, not just West Ham, know this and know that, just simply this one firm that we had assembled, then no one was going to come through us, and that was pure fact. Anyway, you know how it is. Someone said chuck a left, and we're in a road that's a dual carriageway, and because we're all walking in the road, we'd closed it off and brought the traffic to a standstill. So the German old Bill have tried to get us off the road. We've told them to do one, but the problem was nobody knew where we were going, so we agreed to move on. Once they pointed us in the right direction, eventually we got to a hill leading to the ground, and there was a firm of Germans right at the top with a firm of English at the bottom. We'd done no more than started walking up the hill, no shouting or nonsense, just a nice steady pace, spread nice and even across the road. And the Germans were just going in seconds. They were even joined by some of the English who were not sure who we were, so scattered too. We were the first firm of the day to get up the ground, and the Germans must have thought they were in for a rough old night, as the first lot they had come across were 130 organised old school lumps. Nobody would come near us. With nothing really to report home about, we decided to go in. Our man with the tickets gets them out and tells our little group that we have got the best tickets in the house, which was true, but the downside of it was that they were in the German end. Picture it, 13 West Ham in the German end with thousands of English sitting across the pitch from us. Our seats were in line with the penalty area, but there was no segregation at all. We got 11 in the front and me and a mate in the row behind, and you ain't got a seat to sit in. It was the small plastic piece on the concrete steps kind of number, which means the geezer sitting behind you has his knees in the back of your head all game, which added to the danger. We were sitting there amongst thousands upon thousands of Germans, laughing about what would happen if 13 Germans were sitting in the England end at Wembley. which, although fini, was never going to happen. So I am sitting, looking all around me, thinking we are absolutely in trouble here, when suddenly they've scored 1-0 and the Germans are all up and they're looking at us because we're the only lads who have not got up. Nothing happened, so when Owen scored for England, we went for it and we're all up jumping about while all the Germans are sitting there looking at us like we should be sectioned or something. Just before half time, Gerrard scored and the natural reaction was the same. So up we jump, you're going to get done anyway, so you might as well celebrate a bit. Still nothing. It got better. The teams come out and the third goal goes in, then the fourth and then the fifth. When the last one went in, I looked at the scoreboard and thought, yeah, this is worth getting a dig for. The truth of the matter was that you were never going to see a score like that again. Never ever see one like the one that was lit up across the pitch from us. Not in your lifetime. It was a one-off and we knew it. There we were in the Munich stadium and that big black board was saying Deutschland 1, England 5. So we looked at each other and just started singing Chim Chimney, Chim Chimney, Chim Chim Charoo. We are those bastards in claret and blue. Nothing to do with England. But the point was, if we were going to go down, we were going to go down as West Ham and we were going to go down fighting. Still nothing. All you could hear was the band in the England end playing out the Damn Busters tune over and over again. The final whistle had gone and the England section was going delirious, but I had got my head together and was just thinking of the walk out of there. We got up and all thought the same. We knew that the chances were that we were going to get done because we have just watched England batter them, and to be truthful, we had taken the piss a bit ourselves, so if it was going to happen, we were ready for it. We sussed out that we could walk all the way around the stadium on the inside, so we set off towards the England end, looking about thinking, who are the mugs who could try to do us? We stayed close together and were ready for whatever, but inside we were heartened as all you could hear was that bloody band playing the Great Escape tune. As we were trying to get from our end to as near as possible to the England end, this band is getting louder and louder, and we're thinking the nearer we get, we might have a bit of help if it all comes on top. And we made it to the final section but found ourselves separated from the England fans. But as we come round, the gates had opened and there's just thousands of blokes piling out, singing and dancing. We all just looked at each other and thought, how the fuck did we get away with that? Even today, I still think about that night. And I remember when England equalised, I felt a tap on the shoulder and I turned around to him and this German bloke said, Michael Owen, great player. Looking back on that walk back to get to the English side, it was all Germans we were passing, German skinheads, big lumps, and we was taking all the phone calls from our people that knew we were there, and all I can think of was the Germans were maybe too shell-shocked from the result to think about us. The end of that game will always live with me. That giant scoreboard showing 5-1, Owen, Gerrard and Heskey, that and us in the German end. A funny thing occurred when everyone was all back together in the bar of the Holiday Inn hotel after. I had gone up some stairs to find the Kazi, and in doing so I heard one of the London geezers speaking into his mobile phone, and I heard him say, "Oh mate, it's one of the best games I've ever been to and you ain't going to believe this, but so and so is over here with his firm and we've gone to an England game with West Ham, and worse still, you won't believe it, but they are proper decent fellows." We were walking back to the bar and I chipped in with, "Who are you mate?" And the geezer goes, "Millwall." We went on about what a great result it was and shook hands, and we ended up all together buying each other beer. It had been a great day and was capped off with West Ham and Millwall together. The result had gone to everyone's heads. About a year ago, one of ours from the gym was over South London amongst the boxing fraternity when the conversation switched to football. This geezer had gone up to him and said, "Do you remember that 5-1 game?" Our mans nodded and said he was there. and the Millwall geezer has asked him, "Do you know that mug Terry?" Our man has told him that he does, and the Millwall bloke has said, "Well, I had a drink with him after the game, but we were a bit influenced after the result and all that, so you tell the West Ham cunt never again." It's a funny old game. That match went down in history as one of England's greatest ever performances, and Eriksson was a national hero, and his Swedish passport was no longer a problem. Another major plus to come out of the game was that there was very little trouble reported. There were outbreaks of fighting. A northern firm were gassed on the underground, and the night before the game there were problems in quite a few of the major German cities, but given the importance of the game, it passed off relatively peacefully. England were now favourites to qualify for the finals, yet still they came very close to making a cat's arse of things in their final 2 home games against Albania and Greece. Having beaten the Albanians, albeit unconvincingly in Tirana, where 3 goals in the final 17 minutes gave Sven's men a hard-earned victory. The return game at St James Park was in the balance until the final minute when Robbie Fowler added to Michael Owen's late first half strike. England now needed to beat Greece at Old Trafford to gain automatic qualification for the finals, and once again they did their very best to cock things up. Germany were hosting Finland, but an England win would make the score in Germany irrelevant. However, an early goal for the Greeks left the home crowd silenced. An equaliser from Sheringham lifted the nation's hopes briefly as the Greeks scored minutes later to put the Germans back to the top of the group. With a minute remaining, a fairy tale ending was needed, or the 5-1 win in Munich would have been in vain. And David Beckham supplied it when he curled home a magnificent free kick to send the crowd delirious and Sven's men to Japan, as the Germans had only managed to draw themselves, which left them having to qualify via the playoffs. Outside Old Trafford and all over the country, fans celebrated long into the night, and Manchester was awash with face-painted, flag-waving nationals enjoying a carnival atmosphere. But it had not been like that prior to the match, as street fighting between home fans saw scores arrested, including some main Man United faces following an attack on known Stoke hooligans shortly before the match kicked off. Eriksson's team continued to impress, and once again there were high hopes that the long wait for a trophy could be drawing to a close. Despite Japan not being very accessible or cheap to get to, the authorities set about ensuring that England's support over there would follow the balmy army-style cricket fans, and hundreds of banning orders were dished out to prevent known hooligans leaving the country during the tournament. In Japan itself, a ferry boat called the Sunflower Tomakomai, which was used to transport lorries from Tokyo to Hokkaido, was converted into a floating prison capable of holding 630 people. Nicknamed the Furigan Maru, the good ship Hooligan, the boat was anchored off the island of Hokkaido, and a Ministry of Justice spokesman in Japan warned English fans that the boat had been converted, especially for them, and that if arrested they would be locked on the ship before being taken on a 20-hour voyage to a detention centre in Tokyo, where under Japanese law they could be held for up to 27 days without being charged. The threats from the Japanese were enough to deter potential troublemakers from travelling or causing problems during the competition. In Japan, England were well represented, and there were little or no reports of any hooliganism. Many of the lads out there made Japan a working holiday, and in between games, trips to Bangkok were frequent, and counterfeit football shirts and merchandise made many thousands of pounds as the locals were gripped by the World Cup bug. Back in England, there were reports throughout the finals of violence erupting in pubs and towns on days when England were playing, and after one incident in Stoke-on-Trent, 4 men were jailed following violence in Hanley city centre after fans watched England beat Denmark 3-0. The courts even managed to hand out football banning orders of up to 6 years to the men found guilty, as they claimed the fighting was football related. It was a sign of the times that the authorities could now convict people for football violence offences, even when they were watching the game on TV thousands of miles away from the actual game. Whatever next, undercover police officers infiltrating pubs when Match of the Day is on and handing out Section 60s. On the field, it was the same old story, and England crashed out in the quarter-finals against eventual winners Brazil. It had been an eventful campaign, and one that will always be remembered for that night in Munich and the now famous picture of the scoreboard displaying the huge Deutschland. England 1-5 image.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you subscribe, you will be notified when we release a new video. It could be your firm we make a video about next, so don't miss out and hit the subscribe button. You can find me on Facebook or email me if you have a good story to tell. See you next time.